What's good, everybody? It's Dougie.
Jamo.
And Sebastian.
We're here to talk to you about intelligence and espionage in the Civil War. When intelligence in the Civil War is brought up, what do you guys think about?
Sure, I don't even know, James Bond. Nah, for real though, I think of spies and different investigators that help fight in the war diplomatically.
Do y'all think they contributed more to the war than people who are actually out there fighting?
I think they all contributed in different ways and were both very important to the war.
President Abraham Lincoln's primary source of information was the telegraph office at the War Department. He often walked to the War Department that was west of the White House, where he spent hours and hours reading incoming telegrams and drafting responses to field commanders. I mean, that's important. Sending messages to people, to generals, that can change everything. Imagine if messages couldn't get sent.
Oh damn, that's interesting.
It would be insane if things didn't get sent. There would be blind attacks and no information. That would be total chaos. Some spies in the war include Harriet Tubman, Dr. Mary Edwards Walker, Elizabeth Van Lew, Sarah Edmonds, Pauline Cushman, Antonia Ford Willard, Belle Boyd, and Henry Thomas Harrison.
That's a lot of people. I wonder what they really did in their day-to-day spy life and everyday life.
I mean, their jobs were to gain information on a certain topic, but in one incident, and probably many more, a spy was caught.
Can you expand on that?
A woman by the name of Rose Greenhow was suspected of spying for the Confederacy by Alan Pickenton. He raided her house and placed her on house arrest. She was then incarcerated and left for England to try and gain support for the Confederacy.
Yes, Americans often went to England to gain their support, but in May 1861, Great Britain issued a Declaration of Neutrality.
What did England state in the Declaration?
It gave them the right to contract loans and purchase supplies in neutral nations and to exercise belligerent rights on the high seas.
I wonder what England thought of this Civil War.
Well, Great Britain did not support the slavery in the South, but many politicians such as Prime Minister Viscount Palmerston liked the South because of the resources they produced and wanted to recognize it as its own country. But because of the Neutrality Act, they never could. Davis sought to change this by negotiating with these nations for full diplomatic recognition. Official diplomatic recognition by Britain and France would not only lend credibility to the Confederacy's bid for independence, but will also pave the way for lucrative trade deals between the Confederate States and the European powers.
Interesting. Have you heard of the tale of the two White Houses?
Let me think. I don't think I have. What is it? Is there a secret White House that we don't know about?
Yeah, there were two White Houses, not just the one we know in the capital of the United States.
What? There's no way. How come I never knew or was told about this?
The White House in Washington, D.C. was constructed to serve as the executive seat for the President of the United States. During the War of 1812, British troops burned the building, but it was quickly rebuilt and reoccupied by 1817. The following year, a smaller three-story neoclassical-style private mansion was constructed in Richmond, Virginia, that would later become the Confederate White House in 1861.
The Union and Confederate executive mansions represented competing ideals and served as offices. They were home to their respective leaders, President Abraham Lincoln and President Jefferson Davis.
President Lincoln's primary source of information was the telegraph office at the War Department, and he employed personal spies like William A. Lloyd.
Oh, yes. I've heard of him. He's usually referred to as Lincoln's personal spy.
That's a cool nickname.
I know, right? But before working for him, Lloyd published railroad and steamboat schedules in the South. And when the war began, he was unable to travel to the Confederacy because he did not have a passport. Lloyd demanded that he be Lincoln's spy and would not take no for an answer. Upon reviewing Lloyd's application, President Lincoln saw an opportunity to employ Lloyd because of his frequent trips to Confederate states. President Lincoln offered to issue a passport and a monthly salary if Lloyd agreed to serve as his personal spy. Lloyd provided many types of information to the president, including maps of Confederate camps and forts, detailed supplies in Richmond, and information pertaining to General Robert E. Lee's forces.
Also, he was really dedicated to working for Lincoln. I wonder why.
I mean, who wouldn't want to work for the president? Personally, I know I would.
Yeah, me too.
What about the other spies in the White House?
Elizabeth Van Lew, a pro-Union spy, used her network of spies, including Mary Jane Richards, to gather intelligence from inside the Confederate White House.
The work that Richards did for Lew is kind of unknown because it is stated that their information is gathered from Negroes that certainly show wisdom, discretion, and prudence, which is wonderful.
Why would the work she did be unknown, though? Was it not documented, or do they just not want us to know?
I think there's no way it's not documented.
Yeah, it has to be documented.
It's probably just information that the U.S. doesn't want public.
Espionage continued until the capture of Richmond in 1865, with President Lincoln visiting the former Confederate White House and eventually being assassinated by John Wilkes Booth.
What do you know about the Secret Service, Dougie?
I just know that they protect the president.
The term Secret Service in the United States has historical roots dating back to the Revolutionary War, with various organizations within the War Department using the same title.
Both the Union and Confederate sides in the Civil War had their intelligence divisions referred to as Secret Service, conducting espionage and counter-espionage operations.
Interesting. Who was involved in the Secret Service?
Key figures such as Alan Pinkerton, Lafayette Baker, and William P. Wood were involved in the early Secret Service operations, both during the Civil War and in the formation of the Treasury Department's U.S. Secret Service.
Can we talk a little bit about the people and what they did?
Of course. I mean, Jamo, you want to go first?
Sure. Alan Pinkerton, a renowned private detective, initially won favor with President Lincoln for uncovering a plot to assassinate the president-elect. However, Pinkerton's overestimation of Confederate strength led to his downfall. George Sharp, a successful spy master for the Union Army, used his privileged background and education to provide accurate intelligence reports utilizing what is now called all-source intelligence.
Lafayette Baker, a Union officer and opponent of Pinkerton, employed unconventional methods, assembling a group of spies from Washington, D.C. Despite his cunning, Baker failed to uncover John Wilkes Booth's assassination plot. Elizabeth Van Lew, portrayed by Waller as a domestic spy master, ran a network of agents from her home in the Confederacy. Van Lew supported the Union cause, aided prisoners, and provided critical intelligence despite facing accusations of treason.
Confusion and controversies arose during World War I, with League members mistakenly associated with the Treasury Department's Secret Service, leading to protests and the eventual removal of the Secret Service inscription from League badges.
During the Civil War, African Americans played an important part in the spy world because no one thought they would. Here's a video that further explains that.
During the Civil War, African Americans played a major role in the top secret world of espionage. And for good reason.
These were people who were overlooked, and as a result, they were able to gather information that would be decisive and incredibly important. People would not suspect them.
In particular, people who were enslaved had deep and unrivaled knowledge about the South.
Enslaved people were the perfect spies because before the war, they were often running away from plantations, and as a result, they understood the terrain, the geography, they understood mountains and waterways.
And one formerly enslaved person is about to be of great assistance to the Union cause. A young abolitionist named Abraham Galloway.
Abraham Galloway was born enslaved in the eastern shore of North Carolina. He escaped enslavement in 1857, and then in 1861, Galloway came back. Because if what he cares about is the black freedom struggle, maybe it's possible to fight that in the land of his birth now.
Abraham Galloway was a formerly enslaved person, Union spy and military recruiter, militant abolitionist, advocate for black suffrage, North Carolina Republican Party organizer, delegate to the Convention of 1868, and state senator. He was born on February 8, 1837, in Smithville, North Carolina, a small coastal town known today as Southport in Brunswick County. His mother, Hester Hankins, was a slave, and his father, John Wesley Galloway, was a white boatman.
Alright, this will wrap up our project today, guys. Thank you guys for listening. You guys heard it first from the Salle Spies.
Yep. And that's it.
Thanks for listening.